Welcome to the month of June, 30 days all about gin. Shining a spotlight on craft-made Canadian. Fun facts and proper tastings, live cocktails Friday afternoons. Discover 14 different brands and be influenced by me. Song for roll. That's right, I'm a song for roll. Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue à cette 23e journée de June. Hello everyone, and yes, welcome to this 23rd day of June, my 30-day salute to gin during the month of June. Now, since the start of the month, I have been talking about different traditional styles of gin and also taking my taste buds through Ontario and British Columbia and showcasing some wonderful examples of the original, inventive, creative, and very tasty small batch artisanal gins that are being produced right here in Canada. Today, as you may have guessed from the opening, I'm off to La Belle Province for a look at and taste of two gins being produced by Distilleries du Québec in Quebec City, Carré and Carré 1665, an aged gin. The name Carré is a nod to the deep and rich history of Quebec, specifically to the mid-1600s when a unique approach to urban planning was introduced in the Notre-Dame-des-Anges seigneurie, what has become present-day Charlesbourg, which is a borough of Quebec City. Now, what made this urban planning so unique was that it was based on using trapezoidal parcels to divide the land in a star-shaped pattern with the goal of having early settlers' houses grouped closer together in a village-like setting. The center, or heart of the village, was the Trait Carré, and the houses had to be built in the first third part of the trapezoid offshoot around it. This is done to ensure that the people would be close to the village itself. This would allow them to not only be close to services like church, but also to produce a well-balanced society where people would be able to ask their neighbors for help if and when they needed it. And perhaps the most advantageous aspect was that the settlers could more easily and effectively defend themselves from attack as they were all closer together. This theme of unity and balance is what inspired co-founders Christophe Lagacé and David Levesque to establish Distilleries du Québec in 2016 and to use their knowledge and passion of craft distilled products to produce their own unique, high-quality offerings that embody the history and the spirit of Quebec. Now, I recently had the honor of chatting with Christophe himself, and I was able to ask him a few questions. The first involving the inspiration to produce a gin. So, Christophe, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me.
Hello, Paul.
But the first question I have for you is, what was it about becoming a distiller in Quebec, and specifically including gin, that was appealing to you and your partner, David, to dive into this crazy world of craft distillation?
Well, Paul, it's an idea that I had back in 2013 to start a distillery. Me and my associate, we have a background in IT. We work as security consultants. And although the pay is good, it's not as exciting as making something from scratch, like alcohol. So we had this idea and fully understood that, regulations, taxes, and the market for alcohol is very, very complicated. So we took the time to analyze the market, regulations, the tax model, and to come up with a decent, realistic business plan to start this distillery, which we started 5 years ago, actually, in 2016.
Next, I was curious about the 14 different ingredients used in Trait Carré gin, and asked Christophe, this time en français, about the importance of using local Quebec-grown products. Au sujet des ingrédients des bottes-à-nec, est-il important d'utiliser des ingrédients, des bottes-à-nec locales du Québec pour montrer le terroir du Québec dans votre gin?
Tout à fait. En fait, nous, l'approche qu'on a eue avec le gin très carré, c'était d'utiliser des aromates du terroir québécois, mais pas nécessairement se limiter à ça. Donc, on ne voulait pas faire un gin 100% terroir. On voulait inclure des choses qui poussent au Québec, mais aussi des ingrédients qui poussent dans des pays plus chauds que le Canada. Donc, on voulait, par exemple, intégrer le pamplemousse, l'orange amère, la fleur d'hibiscus. C'est pas des choses qui poussent même dans la vallée du Niagara. Donc, on s'est dit, bon, on va faire un mélange du terroir, puis des ingrédients qui viennent d'ailleurs. D'où l'expression sur notre bouteille de la flore d'ici et d'ailleurs. C'est vraiment une combinaison du terroir avec des aromates qui poussent à l'international.
Fantastique. Okay, so folks, now it's time to taste. And first up is the dry style 40.4% ABV Trait Carré. So we're going to get our nose calibrated, right? We always bring the glass up 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and now we're ready for a big sniff. So right away, it's very soft, citrusy, and floral. You know, the juniper is mild and it plays really well with the orange and lemon and grapefruit notes that I'm getting. I also get a little bit of ripe mango, followed by some floral notes, some clover, violet, chamomile, with just a hint of cedar and some soft, sweet spice. Time to taste. So we're going to move the gin around, right? We want to make sure we coat those 5 flavor receptors. A little bit of a juicy mouthfeel, pine, lemon, orange, and a bit of peppery heat all coming up front. Grapefruit's coming in now, a little grapefruit pith, followed by some tropical notes, lots of floral, and then this dry woodiness types appears, along with a bit of a nutmeg-ish spice. Overall, all in all, quite nice. So, what do I think? Well, I find this to be light, bright, soft, and extremely approachable. There's nothing harsh here. Rather, you know, that's not harsh. Rather, I find the aromas and the flavors work in harmony to invite you back for another sip. And I asked Christophe if making a gin for, well, what I'm going to call for everybody, was indeed their goal. Was that something that you wanted to do with the non-aged gin to make a gin that everybody could enjoy?
Oh yeah, definitely. When we started to our experiments for the gin, our objectives was to create a classic gin, not something that would be too funky that people would buy the first bottle but not the second one. You want repeat business in this industry, so we wanted to create something that would, like you said, that would be very approachable, a good any day kind of gin, and we the approach to use flowers, fruits, to create something fresh, summery, very balanced gin. We've found that not all gin on the market were goodly balanced. So we did 26 different recipes over the course of 6 months before giving up and say, well, this is our first gin. We'll do maybe a second one later, but we need to get some cash.
All right, so time to move on and taste our second gin, Trait Carré 1665, a 48% alcohol gin that's aged in former whiskey barrels. So again, calibrate our nose, get it ready, get the olfactory senses going. 1, 2, 3. So I find this to be very elegant on the nose. Citrus and soft pine resin appear, then give way to dry cedar and soft, sweet, almost tobacco spice-like notes. Yeah, folks, you know what? It actually reminds me of a really fresh, quality Cuban cigar. Just lovely. So a little bit of sweet floral and a little bit of tropical fruit that are rounding things out for me. Wow, quite the nose. Okay, time to taste. And again, we're going to move the gin around, coat those 5 flavor receptors. So the juniper is forthright. Then I'm getting some woody notes, dry cedar. Now that's being followed immediately by orange, grapefruit, and a little bit of grilled mango. Some nutmeg, right? Spice coming through, nutmeg, black pepper. And now dried floral tones are abounding. And I'm getting some clover now and a teeny bit of vanilla just at the back of the palate. Just yum. Very much yum. Okay, so what do I think of this one? Overall, I believe this to be a fantastic example of how aging a gin in wood can bring about added and very interesting depth and complexity of character. You know, I don't come across many aged gins. And even rarer still is an aged gin that is so well balanced, with neither the gin nor the wood dominating the other. Instead, with this one, they work together in tandem. Now, I just had to ask Christophe about what prompted them to go this route.
Well, Paul, when we started, when we wrote the business plan, we visited about 30 different distilleries in Canada, the Northeast, the U.S. Northeast, and we discovered this kind of gin was kind of intriguing. We were new to the world of aged gin. We tasted some, aged gin that were good, some not so good. And after we released the Très Carré, we thought that our goal is to make rum and whiskey on the long term. So a distillery without barrels is kind of sad,
Yes.
So the third, we released the vodka, then gin, and then the third product was, the aged gin. Now, how do you age a gin? You have so many options to choose from in terms of barrel. So we picked small casks of American rye whiskey to age this gin. So the goal was to with the rye to get the spice peppery flavor. We thought it would be a good addition to the gin, which was more floral and fruity. And we purchased 5 small casks from an American distillery, and this was our first test. So we provided some samples to our friends who like to be our friends, and they said, "Well, you have really something." So the fact that we're using small cask, it provides us with the fast aging over the course of several months to more than a year in this case. So we're, kind of very satisfied with this aged gin because it's kind of a hybrid between the gin and the whiskey. It's very, very special. It's the same recipe, but used differently.
I find it fascinating to know that the recipe in both of these is the same and how just a small boost in ABV, right, 48 versus 40.4, and some time in wood, well, expertly timed in wood, I may add, that how it can change things so much between them. Now, for my last question, I wanted to know what Christophe and David hope people take away from their gins, so I posed this exact question. But, encore en français. En dégustant les deux gins, qu'est-ce que vous voulez que les gens retiennent?
En fait, pour nous, notre approche avec les clients, c'est de dire que le gin, dans le fond, est l'expression du terroir. Pour nous, Québec a toujours été une ville maritime depuis les débuts de la colonie. Donc, c'est important. Pour nous, l'histoire est dans la bouteille, c'est notre devise, c'est notre motto. L'expression même de notre gin, oui, c'est le terroir, mais c'est aussi l'histoire de notre ville. Le nom Très Carré, ça fait référence à un quartier de la ville de Québec où les terres sont découpées en étoiles, un peu comme un plan radial. C'est une structure qui existe uniquement en Amérique du Nord. Ça date de 1665 quand Jean Talon est arrivé à Québec, puis avait mandat de Louis XIV de regrouper les colons, puis les Jésuites à ce moment-là avaient suggéré à Jean Talon ce genre de découpage-là. C'est pour ça que ce qu'on a repris sur l'étiquette, c'est vraiment le pattern qu'on voit des terres, en fait, qui existent encore aujourd'hui. Si on regarde sur une carte satellite ou même sur Google Maps, on va voir les rues qui partent du carré central où était le moulin, l'église, toutes les ressources de la colonie. Donc, pour nous, c'est vraiment ce qui nous démarque en termes de non seulement d'image au niveau du gin, mais la recette, c'est ça, c'est qu'on vous fait voyager. Chaque bouteille de gin, c'est un voyage. On a des aromates qui viennent des cueilleurs. Il y en a qui viennent des pays chauds. Fait que c'est une expérience.
I absolutely agree that both expressions of trait carré do indeed take your taste buds on a delightful flavor voyage. All right, so curious about how you can bring home some of this spirit of Quebec? Well, for those of you living in Quebec or traveling to Quebec, all you have to do is visit the SAQ. It's actually the only place in Canada where you can buy it. The stock number 1462244 for the dry style, right? At a very reasonable $42 for a 750 milliliter bottle. For the barrel aged gin, stock number 138-76386, listed at $63.25 for a 750 milliliter bottle. Quite a reasonable price for the depth of character and flavor that I'm finding in there. You know, in my opinion, I've had straight up whiskeys that really weren't as smooth or as interesting. All right, so folks, that's a wrap for today and on showcasing continued creativity, ingenuity, and top-notch gin being made by our dedicated craft distillers up here in the Great White North. I would like to say merci beaucoup to Christophe for taking the time to chat with me and for sharing such great information. Until next time, mes amis, stay safe, be well, and santé from Psalm for All.